Thank you for watching or listening to this free podcast of the Young Turks. We want to make sure that you get some portion of the show every day, but if you want the full show, which is actually 5 segments, come become a member and support independent media as well. tytnetwork.com/join. Meanwhile, enjoy the free podcast.
Cranston here with Mark Thompson, who is a frequent member here on the panel and also the host of The Edge with Mark Thompson.
Yes, thank you very much for that mention.
But you need to say with Mark Thompson.
Because there are a jillion other podcasts called The Edge.
But you are the edgiest.
I am edgier than many and just edgy enough. Thank you, though, Hannah.
Perfect. And Brooke Thomas, who is also a regular over here at TYT, a regular on my show, Think Tank. I was just going to shamelessly plug my show while plugging you, youtube.com/Think Tank. We have an awesome show today. We're going to get into all of the controversies surrounding the Correspondents' dinner that happened in D.C. this weekend. I have a controversial take on it.
Oh,
I do. So we're going to get into that in just a minute. We're also going to talk about what's going on in North Korea and South Korea. And then my favorite story of the day is about the NRA, which sounds counterintuitive, but I saw it this morning, and I honestly, I mean, as a journalist, I always double and triple check my sources, but I quadruple check this. I checked it 1,000 times because I was like, this is too good to be true.
It reads like an onion piece.
It does. Yeah. It absolutely does. So we have an awesome show for you guys. Let's just jump right to it. The White House Correspondents' dinner celebrates freedom of speech and freedom of the press. And it is getting some bad press for a free speech performed by Michelle Wolf. Now, a lot of journalists that were present at the dinner think that she went too far. And some of her boldest jokes had to do with abortion. She said, Mike Pence is also very anti-choice. He thinks abortion is murder, which, first of all, don't knock it till you try it. And when you do try it, really knock it. You got to get that baby out of there. I know a lot of you are very anti-abortion, unless it's the one you got for your secret mistress. Okay. Also, she took aim at Kellyanne Conway, saying, it's like that old saying, if a tree falls in the woods, how do we get Kellyanne under that tree? I'm not suggesting she get hurt, just stuck. And then, of course, she went after Mika and Joe. So it wasn't only for the Conservative Party. She also went after MSNBC of Morning Joe and said, congratulations, you guys. It's like when a Me Too works out. But the most controversy surrounding her routine has to do with her bit about Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Let's take a look.
We are graced with Sarah's presence tonight. I have to say I'm a little starstruck. I love you as Aunt Lydia on The Handmaid's Tale. Mike Pence, if you haven't seen it, you would love it. Sarah steps up to the podium, I get excited because I'm not really sure what we're going to get. A press briefing, a bunch of lies, or divided into softball teams. It's shirts and skins, and this time don't be such a little bitch, Jim Acosta. I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. She burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye. Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's lies. It's probably lies. And I'm never really sure what to call Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Is it Sarah Sanders? Is it Sarah Huckabee Sanders? Is it cousin Huckabee? Is it Auntie Huckabee Sanders? What's Uncle Tom but for white women who disappoint other white women? Oh, I know, Aunt Coulter.
All right, so that was a little scathing, to say the least. Now, many are really upset that she went after Sarah Huckabee Sanders' looks. She went after the comments about her being a softball coach, Aunt Lydia from The Handmaid's Tale, and a lot of people are still upset about the smoky eye comment. Even Tomi Lahren said she thought it was awful that she took aim at a woman this way. I didn't know Tomi Lahren was now a feminist, but apparently she is. But Sarah's dad was actually the most upset at this commentary. He said, those who think that the tasteless, classless bullying at the White House Correspondents' Dinner was an example of the First Amendment should never condemn bullying, bigoted comments, racist, bile, or hate speech. People should be free to speak, but held accountable for it. So he's essentially equating what Michelle Wolf had to say about his daughter with hate speech, which is a false equivalent there. He also says, after seeing the young female hired, which is absurd and sexist in itself, the way he phrased that, but continuing, hired to verbally bully anyone who worked for real Donald Trump, I now understand why eating Tide Pods is popular. That level of vulgarity is best handled with a mouth washed out with soap. Have some more Tide Pods. Go for it.
Is that a PC way of saying kill yourself?
No, I think he's
Tide Pods are dangerous.
Right, of course they're dangerous. What he's saying is like wash out your mouth because it's vulgar. And she's saying something that's vulgar.
Okay.
But I mean, the interesting part about this is that he's so against this verbal bullying, especially against his daughter, who's a woman. And it's like, okay, but you're defending Donald Trump, who verbally bullies women on a daily basis. He calls them pigs. He calls them dogs. He says they have blood coming out of wherever. I'm not saying either are right, but I'm just saying, like, it's one or the other. You know what I mean? And this comes right after he, really stood up against PC culture. He said that people shouldn't watch his show if you're easily offended, and warned them not to tune in because they're going to get triggered and need a pony, popsicle, and Play-Doh to cope. So what he says is okay, but whatever a comedian says about his daughter, about his administration, is not okay.
A lot of times that's what we deal with, though. It's not a problem unless it affects you. So I guess if that's the punishment, if that's how you handle something that triggers you, then don't watch it. So it seems it already aired, so it seems pretty easy to not watch it. If that's how he deals with, is it free speech or is it free speech is really like what it comes down to.
Now, of course, you're right. I mean, look, you can't be surprised that Mike Huckabee comes to the rescue of Sarah Huckabee. I mean, that's just, if he didn't do that, I'm sure he wouldn't be able to live with himself. On the other hand, he's a total hypocrite. He's a hypocrite in so many other ways beyond just this one. But yeah, he's constantly making fun of liberal snowflakes and how we get triggered by things. And then, of course, he is super triggered by what went down at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Now, so again, his defense of his daughter, I can completely understand.
I hope my dad would defend me. If somebody went after me, regardless of what it was for, I hope my dad would
I don't blame him for getting his back up about that.
I feel like if I showed up to participate in a roast and somebody roasted me, I don't think she would flip out about it.
Yeah, I don't know. It would depend.
My mom roasts me, but if somebody roasted me, that's my daughter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's that distinction when it comes to, parental protection.
Do you
I don't
sign
mean to
up for it, though, by showing up?
Well, I mean, I think it's great that she showed up. I think it's a good sport that she showed up. I think, here's where I stand on this. I think a lot of Michelle Wolf's jokes were edgy. Right? They were definitely edgy, and she pushed the envelope. But
were any out of bounds?
But I don't think so. I think that she was there. I don't personally condone any sort of jokes or shaming about somebody's weight or their looks and things like that. I think even when people go after Donald Trump's appearance, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. But you're in free reign to do so.
But did she go after that a little bit?
That's what the question is.
So she's I think what people are saying is that she did that with the softball and Aunt Lydia.
So did she? Is that out of bounds?
I don't think it's out of bounds. I just don't think it's funny.
Softball coaches are unattractive. I think that seemed to me like easily more like a joke on how she kind of aggressively yells out reporters' names and kind of doles out who gets to talk and no, you're done talking and now that's kind of what I got it. And as far
That's
as
the
the
way I took it
Handmaid's
too,
Tale.
by the way,
I immediately took it as she's saying, hey, you are a woman who is pushing these misogynistic policies to the people, which is what Aunt Lydia does on The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
And anything otherwise, without her saying it, would be that the people who are offended are saying that Aunt Dowd is ugly.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
And that's the joke, and that's not what she said. It becomes, now you're saying it.
Well, and she said, I mean, a lot of the I guess, like the clapbacks that she's getting in response to this has to do with her smoky eye comment, right? Mm-hmm. And she literally is complimenting her smoky eye. Sarah Huckabee Sanders has great makeup. Like, her makeup artist is phenomenal. And she's literally complimenting that, but also saying it's with the ashes from the burned facts that you present to it.
To be fair, it's tough to pull a compliment out of that little run. I mean, it didn't feel like a compliment. But
she's
look,
claiming it's a compliment.
Apart from that, I have to say, honestly, and I love club comedy, edgy comedy, but this idea that's become a roast where you can just blowtorch everybody in the room, maybe it's gone a little too far.
You think she went too far?
I do. I mean, I think that first of all, I loved her material. I thought it was really funny. I mean, laugh out loud funny. But if it were up to me, I would have pulled a little bit of that abortion stuff out. I thought it was rough. You got to know your room a little bit on that. And maybe you say, well, no, Mark, the room is the USA. Okay, maybe that's different. I'm talking about playing that room there and having some general respect for people's sensibilities. But please don't misunderstand me. I loved her stuff. I thought it was edgy, and this is what you're going to get when you hire somebody who's that kind of comic. But more fundamentally, this White House Correspondents' dinner is crap. They shouldn't have had it. I've always said it. It's way too cozy. It's a celebration of I don't know what. If it's journalism, they should take a minute and talk about where journalism has gone. I mean, there are a handful of outfits that are still doing journalism, but most of it's doing intense discussion speech like CNN and Fox News and MS and all the rest. And the real investigative stuff is being done here at TYT, but also in a lot of different print areas across the internet. And so I don't see them as journalists anymore. I see them as celebrities who are all going down on each other on this night of the White House Correspondents' dinner. So the whole thing is garbage. And they've gotten so into these stunt bookings of comics who are then so edgy, and then afterwards, everybody's clutching their pearls going, was Jimmy Kimmel too difficult to take? Was Stephen Colbert too in the face of George Bush? It was what you get when you hire that kind of comic.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point, right? Because the entire night is supposed to show the relationship between journalists and politicians, right? And then they were upset essentially by this because they're still trying to hide behind this cloak of impartiality, right? And they're not impartial. They're not unbiased. Like, that's impossible. But they're still trying to say, oh no, we're neutral journalists. And that's just not the case, right? And so when she's saying these things that are so pointed, I think they start to get uncomfortable because they have, through their reporting and through their sensationalism, have just completely normalized some of the behavior behavior and some of the things that are going on in the White House. And she even called them out on that. She says, you've like enabled this monster. You've created him. You are perpetuating this like it's your fault. And they don't want to hear that. They're not self-reflective. And I think that's what they're most uncomfortable with. And I think what they did is use Michelle Wolf as a scapegoat.
Well, I mean, like initially, isn't this supposed to be, and it wasn't even supposed to be about like chumming up and showing the relationship between the subjects and the people who cover the subjects. It was really supposed to be a dinner to celebrate these journalists who do the hard work. And I think the reason the New York Times, they don't participate in this anymore because it has become kind of this celebration that shows you kind of partying and chumming up to the people that you were supposed to be holding accountable. And it goes back, is it free speech or is it free speech? So is this going too far? Or like I think that these hard news kind of operations, they have all these payola rules and you can't even accept gifts from people that you cover. But then you have a massive NBC and MSNBC party that Sarah Huckabee Sanders was at after this when she was so upset. Is that okay?
But that's the thing is they are trying to, I mean, I've been to the correspondents' dinner and what happens is like in this room before the dinner, they all are in the same room, right? All of the journalists, all of the politicians, they're all schmoozing, right? Because what these journalists want are access.
Access, right. And is that appropriate?
Well, look, journalism in Washington does involve chumming around. And journalism in Washington does involve going out for a drink or dinner with a source or maybe even with a high-profile political figure. So there is chumming going on already. We know that. That's the way to get a source to open up to you. That's the way to get an inside track on certain stories. Having said that, it's grossly perverted in this process of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It's become some kind of Oscars type thing where you sit there and the next day you do this post-mortem on the host. It's forget it. Scrap the host, get back to journalism, and you guys should celebrate real journalists and the work that real journalists still do, those who are still doing it. And then it should all go to the scholarship fund or those things that are associated with supporting journalism and free speech and the media in this country. But we've gotten way off track with this, as I say, this celebration of each other. It's just a self-congratulatory load of crap.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about North Korea and South Korea and what President Moon actually said about President Trump.
You're right in the middle of this podcast. We got another great segment coming up for you. If you'd like the full show, which is actually 5 segments, go to tytnetwork.com/join. You become a member, you support the show, you support independent media, and you get the whole 2-hour show ad-free every day. Let's go do it now.
Welcome back to the Young Turks. Woo! Yay. I'm Kim Horcher. We are joined by Hasan Piker and Mark Thompson, who always greets us with, "What's up, Turks?"
What's up, Turk?
I don't know if we've ever addressed that on camera.
Yeah, on camera.
We're on camera right now.
Yeah, but I do. I try to come into the office and try to make an entrance every time.
So we're going to get tweets in the next break. But we're going to head into our first story, I think, right away. We're doing great on time, and I don't want to wreck it for everyone. Kanye West has called Emma Gonzales his hero. But instead of referring back to him, she has instead referred to James Shaw Jr., the hero of the Waffle House shooting, instead. So recently we have these tweets from Kanye himself. He has been going on a fun media blitz, but recently he tweeted, "My hero, Emma Gonzales," with a picture of her, followed by, "Inspired by Emma, shaved his head." Took me a while to get that one. And then Emma's response, "James Shaw Jr., who actually I would describe strongly as a hero." I did a Facebook video on this recently, but James Shaw Jr. is the one who stopped the gunman of the recent Waffle House shooting with his bare hands. A good way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with no gun. And he has not been acknowledged by Trump at all, which I would categorize this as epic levels of cowardice, because James doesn't seem to fit into current narratives of civilians needing automatic rifles or white supremacists not being normalized. Is that the word? And I would call this man a bona fide hero. And I agree with her.
Well, there's no question about it. I mean, it was a great response. There's no question about it. He's a hero who really, as you say, hasn't been recognized at the highest levels the way normally leadership, in the case of this president, President Trump, normally likes to sort of wrap himself around heroic messages. But I think Kim's right. I mean, this guy doesn't fit a lot of the narrative that this administration is about. And as a result, the story goes orphaned, at least in terms of being recognized as a hero. But yeah, Emma really did.
I mean, when you look at Emma and James, they're both people who are similar to each other in that they're standing up for a cause that isn't completely narcissistic. I think Kanye sees a lot of himself in Trump because, I did listen to his 2 songs that he released this weekend. Not the one that goes poopity scoop, but the other one in which he says, Obama was heaven sent, but Trump proved that I could be president. He sees himself as an outsider like him because he has constantly tried to get acknowledged by people with power and fame. I think he's done songs about not being recognized by the fashion industry. But also, you'll remember President Obama epically denied him a relationship. He called him a jackass. He never took him seriously. And he's complained a lot about him and his wife not being taken seriously. And I think he sees himself in Trump.
I think the easiest way of just never to be taken seriously by anyone except for bad faith political actors like those at Fox News is to tweet out consecutive rants about how the Democrats actually created the KKK and that the Republicans were the ones who were responsible for the slaves being freed, completely discounting, the last 40 to 50 years of history. It's absolutely absurd that this person, a 40-year-old man, is only just learning about, American history, and the fact that he's talking about how the tired old Dinesh D'Souza tropes of how Democrats are the true racist ones, and remember the KKK was created by the Democrats, like all of these insane things is mind-boggling to me, and I'm a very outspoken Kanye advocate. I even went up against Jank on Twitter, and I was like, you're wrong. Kanye is a musical savant, and he's just doing this to sell albums, and I feel terrible because
I think he might secretly be a marketing or comedy genius.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your active ID more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Yeah. I'm not sure. It's very hard to tell.
Well, he's definitely he's definitely a marketing wizard. But they do, Trump and Kanye, share something, right? They are both empty vessels, as you say. He's just now hearing all this stuff that he's regurgitating. It's just being fed to him. Everything from slavery to whatever.
To the civil rights movement.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, literally, he has no sense of anything that's not related to him. This completely leave aside the music. Now we're talking about the political forums. And he's got the fame that Trump had, right? So he's the empty vessel and the fame. So in that sense, he is like Trump. Trump and he are kissing cousins.
I don't know that he's empty, because I know at least at one time he created art that really inspired people. And at this point, I think he's been famous for so long, he's gotten kind of isolated and insular. He doesn't take constructive criticism. He views it as attacks to him, very much like President Trump. And I think over time, his grip on things that are real to people has loosened. It almost feels like he thinks that classicism is the same as racism at this point, and it's not.
But he's not even fully talking about classism either. I think that's a really good point. But one thing I wanted to say is that Kanye is performatively trying to be a centrist now. which is one of the most annoying type of people that you can be on the internet. The whole both sides are bad, but both sides are also good. We should love one another argument kind of falls to pieces when one side is literally advocating for, ethnic cleansing or an ethno-state. We saw that happen with Donald Trump trying to defend Nazis at Charlottesville. And Kanye West is doing that. And the reason why I think it's performative is because while he is consistently blasting out misinformation about the Democrats, he then follows that up with this very performative photo of Emma Gonzales saying Emma Gonzales is my hero. And then not really following that up with any sort of liberal principles or any sort of democratic principles. There was something from one of the text messages he got earlier today was about how socialism is so terrible for the world that you would have to be intellectually dishonest not to see it. It's all alt-right, red pill, MAGA bullshit, coated with a little bit of performative wokeness on the side to bring back liberals or maybe to anger conservatives by posting a photo of Emma Gonzales.
It's really not clear what he's doing because on one hand he's doing this pro-Trump MAGA stuff and then Emma picking up alt-right followers, dropping alt-right followers. I don't know what he's doing. So that leads me to think maybe he's just doing this for attention. It wouldn't be crazy.
Everything Kanye does is for attention. Everything Kanye does is for Kanye. And he admits that. And that's very similar to Donald Trump. And it's just sad that, we cover identity politics a lot on the show. And, I have this conversation with my black friends all the time. It's like being a black American is identity politics. Like everything you do is somewhat political. And I understand, just like Chance the Rapper even said, you can be black and a conservative, but to then turn around and promote one of the more transparently racist administrations in history is kind of a sad way to market yourself or market your album. And I thought Kanye would be at least a little bit aware of that, or he would be above that, but apparently he's not, and it's made me and a bunch of other Kanye fans very sad.
I think it's just perfectly ironic that Emma brought in James Shaw Jr. into this, considering that element of racial politics, that element of why can't this hero be recognized, or why can't this act of terrorism be acknowledged in any way by the president, and it isn't. It simply isn't. Instead, we're looking at purely narcissistic things. It's a circle almost, or a triangle, rather. Let's move on to our next story, also involving our president. President Trump hosted a White House ceremony on Friday to celebrate and praise American athletes who competed in the 2018 Olympic Games. And in that speech, he called Paralympians tough to watch. Let's take a look at a video.
So today, on behalf of the United States, I want to thank every Olympian and Paralympian. And that was just incredible. And what happened with the Paralympics was so incredible and so inspiring to me. And I watched. It's a little tough to watch too much, but I watched as much as I could. It was really fantastic, and I want to thank you.
So some other Olympians didn't like this characterization, specifically Adam Rippon, who competed in the 2018 Games, said in a tweet, Olympians from the 2018 Games have been invited to go to the White House today. I will not be going. I will not stand with people who discriminate against those who they perceive as different. In lieu of going to D.C., I have donated to a few of my favorite causes. Those included Red Cross, GLAAD, and it listed several other Olympians in that tweet below, subtweet, that would also not be attending, including Chloe Kim. The Paralympic Games also chimed in on this, saying record numbers around the world are not finding Paralympics tough to watch. Billions of viewers now take the Paralympics in hundreds of countries around the world. We hope the U.S. president continues to watch and be inspired by the Paralympics. So, tough to watch. You could characterize this as him saying he doesn't have enough time to watch this. I would say cut down on Fox and Friends. You will find plenty of time to watch the Paralympics. But I think there's a lot of evidence to show that he does mean probably the meaning that Rippon and the Paralympic Games got. He has, let's say, a history of making fun of people with different abilities than himself, including a reporter that he mocked. I think we have that on video.
So what happens is the Washington Post writes an article. And one of the paragraphs, it says, And by the way, this was right after September 11th. This was September 18th. And right after, sort of an amazing thing, right after a couple of good paragraphs, it's talking about northern New Jersey, draws the prober's eye, written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said. This was 14 years ago. They didn't do a retraction. 14 years ago, they did no retraction.
Trump has also been noted in reportedly making fun of John McCain, who is a war veteran who was captured and suffers disabilities to this day. From that, he has also made fun of Mitch McConnell in a similar way, though he does cut himself slack for his abilities. For instance, he did cite bone spurs for a five-time deferment from serving the country, and then was chauffeured through Sicily last year in a golf cart rather than walk with other G7 global leaders. So at least he's nice to someone about their abilities.
I love stories like this. I mean, it's obviously terrible. Like, why say it, right? It's just so obvious. But the reason why I love stories like this is because I love watching people who have called themselves intellectuals for the past however many years retroactively try to assign any sort of cogent thought or intelligence to what Trump is saying at any given moment because he is an absolute idiotic, narcissistic man baby, and he'll say whatever. In this instance, he was literally looking for praise. Like, he was like, guys, I watched the Paralympics. Like, being a president's very tough. It was tough to watch, but, I watched parts of it. Won't you congratulate me? Like, how stupid can you be? But then you have, a ton of people that graduated from frickin' Harvard trying to be like, no, he was actually saying that it was tough to watch because, our president is so hardworking. They're just like sweating the entire time trying to be like, come on, just shut up, Trump. Don't say anything else.
I mean, it's such a confirmation bias, for sure. I mean, I have people, I did a video about like Trump being a jerk like this, and they wrote like he would be like Indiana Jones and beat up the Nazis. No, he wouldn't. First of all, if he has alleged bone spurs, he can't do this. It's just ridiculous to see this being argued with absolutely no evidence, and to have these ideas kind of just reflected on this person.
Remember, he was also criticizing the Broward County Police, where he said, sorry to cut you off, but he was like, I would have ran inside. Yeah. I would have absolutely ran inside. He's such a coward, but he thinks he'll be able to do this stuff. And to me, that speaks to the heart of all of the MAGA chuds, because they too feel like they would be John Rambo when the situation arose. They too feel inappropriately that they excel physically. They also believe in white supremacy, so they look at a guy like LeBron and think like, I'm better than him because my skin is the fairer color.
They all talk tough. He is a boorish a-hole. That's not a breaking news story. We know Trump's a boorish a-hole, and so when he says boorish a-hole things, you can't really be surprised. This was extraordinary. I think, as Haas says, he's kind of like, just saying what comes to mind, because he really is just that. He's just a bunch of reflexes, and then he just starts talking. And then, of course, there's hypocrisy and sort of this insane hypocrisy when it comes to his own physicality or lack thereof, when it comes to actually examining what he says. But yeah, don't try to make sense of it. He is just a boorish a-hole, and so he says that stuff that falls into that category.
For the record, though, I do appreciate him mocking John McCain and also Mitch McConnell. Those two are, well, not John McCain as much, but Mitch McConnell is one of the most evil people to ever walk this planet and responsible for many of the terrible things that have happened in this society. I think you should get a pass for mocking him. I don't know what he exactly mocked of Mitch McConnell, but like Michelle Wolf talked about how Mitch McConnell was not able to make it to the White House Correspondents' dinner because he had to get his neck circumcised. That's funny. Sorry.
I mean, I think I don't want to do that kind of thing, which is, I think it's really bottom of the barrel too. When someone is disgusting and deplorable and completely full of greed and acting against humanity, to just criticize them for the way they look. If you criticize someone for the way or your work in a debate is to say, well, you're ugly or you have a disability, you've already lost the debate. That's something children do.
No, you're a much nicer person than I am. I'm not saying I'm right for doing this. Like, I'm childish as hell, but I also think it's funny to mock Mitch McConnell for looking like a turtle when he has arguably done things that are so morally reprehensible and has devastating impact for millions of Americans, potentially millions of disabled Americans.
Absolutely. But mock the turtle within.
Yeah, mock the
policies.
Well. Yeah, mock the policies. That is a more evolved and I think sensible course. But to your point, McConnell and McCain both. McCain is if you just look at his policies, forget about his service. McCain is I'm sorry, he's a horrible guy.
Yeah,
I agree.
And an absolute showboat. Just putting that out there.
I like the showboat part of all of us.
We are going to go to break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about Bill Cosby.
Thanks for watching or listening to this free version of the Young Turks podcast. You know that the full show is at tytnetwork.com/join. If you become a member, you get the full show ad-free. We love you for watching or listening. Either way, there's going to be a new free podcast tomorrow. You can keep on doing that. But if you want to get the full show ad-free, tytnetwork.com/join. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.